Hello, everybody.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning today. You said that well.
I did. We all wish you a good morning.
We do.
Both of us.
It's early, as us as a collective. But yeah, this is our wrap-up video for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. We had a great time with this show. We really enjoyed it. This was definitely one of our favorites on the channel, and we want to give it a proper send-off.
Right. There's a lot to like about this show.
Yeah.
It worked on a lot of layers, and I kind of want to get into that before we get into what we promised you all we would do, and that is we had a very difficult task of ranking our favorite songs, which I think everyone should do. If you've watched the show, you love the show.
Yeah.
I want to see your list too. There's a lot to choose from. We had to go. I personally spent more time than I should have.
I'm still kind of deciding in my head.
Right, going through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my final list has scribbles on it, but I'm all done and not changing anything, and I still made some changes.
Which shows it's not set in stone.
Right, of course, yeah. Right. It was how I was feeling at the time I put the list together. Why is this show so brilliant and underappreciated?
I think it's because it's satire that is done very, very well, right?
Sure.
It doesn't. It's not just a spoof on romantic comedies. I feel like it actually has something weighty to say.
Yeah, it takes a lot of different directions, and I was thinking about that too. The concept of the crazy ex-girlfriend is kind of an idea we're all familiar with, right?
Sure.
A guy and a girl, they date, they're gonna date, they almost date, whatever, and it doesn't go well. And
sure.
the question is, what went wrong in that relationship or almost relationship? And the answer is, oh, she's crazy. Like, as a dismissal. The reason that we're not happily married or that I look like a bad guy or whatever is because she's nuts. So whatever she's saying bad about me, remember, she's just crazy. And so it's dismissive, right?
Yeah.
And, is that hurtful? Yeah, because, maybe less so now because we live in the online dating world, so you can kind of keep your world separate.
You can.
But for the most part, there's overlap, right?
Sure.
You date the people you go to school with or you people you work with. So when you say, that girl's crazy, you're really doing some reputational damage to somebody that people know.
You are.
To somebody that's around you. And I would be remiss if I didn't say it happens both ways. Girls do that to a certain extent too. There's,
sure.
People trash other people's reputations
after a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a new concept and it's not specific to men. But I would say this idea of ignore whatever that person says because whatever they say doesn't mean anything is more often done by men than women.
Sure.
So I think that's where the show kind of comes from. And I felt like, when starting there's two ways you can go. You can have a sitcom that's basically about the hurt girl, the mean guy, and the shenanigans that ensue. Maybe there's some revenge stories with it and blah, blah, blah,
sure.
Which is really puddle thin and obvious and simple, right?
No.
Or you can do this show where the girl is ultimately dismissed by everybody, including her family, as being crazy, but there's actually some serious things going on, and what kind of feeds into that idea of dismissing somebody because they're crazy.
There's a real darkness.
There is a real darkness. There are real causes that start when you're young, right? You can very easily, when somebody is socially maladjusted, let's say, you can very frequently point back to their parents or their upbringing. Not always, but yeah, and this show did that, right?
Her mom and her dad were both pretty terrible.
Right. So when you take that route, you can cover all kinds of things like this show did.
Yeah.
Which was what
they really did.
As you said, yeah, they did. Like, let's cover everything about friendships and relationships and self-loathing and self-care
and UTIs.
All kinds of stuff. We did learn some things.
We did.
The fish smell metaphors.
That will
the yeast infection will bother me forever.
Spoiler: it's not on my list.
Right? Yeah. None of the songs off that made my list because that was a hilarious but rough episode for us. I don't know. It just really worked for me. Rebecca as a character.
Yeah.
I have friends that started watching because I told them to that did not make it out of season one because they just was like, I hate this person. And I get that. This show is kind of like I was watching Breaking Bad about a month ago, just like background episode.
Yeah.
And it's a lot like that in that, Walter starts out as a sympathetic character. No spoilers here, don't worry. Does not end up there, right?
Yeah.
Although he does not stay sympathetic for long as he descends into madness, right?
Yeah.
And right. And everyone has to decide as a viewer, where did he lose me? Right. Yeah. And who you are depends on where that is, where your lines were. For me, it was Jesse's the
season
girlfriend.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's where I was done with him. Like as a sympathetic person. But like this show, right?
it kind of comes
Rebecca.
back around.
Yeah, it does. But
Mhm.
and in this one, Rebecca pushes you at times, and Paula
Yeah,
does, and Josh does, and all the different characters have their moments of I really am having a hard time with you,
yeah,
and everyone's going to have their different breaking point with them, and that says a lot about you, the viewer, right? It's a litmus
sure.
test for the viewer on where do you get dismissive of these people? Where do you jump off?
It is
You
very
know?
reflective. You know,
Yeah,
you can watch that and be like, how do I feel about
right.
this?
Yeah,
Have I done something like this? Am
and
I this way?
why do I feel like this?
Yeah.
Am I
Yes.
being overly dismissive of this person?
Yes.
Because there were times that I was like, I can't. I'm having a hard time finding somebody to sympathize with
In
right
season
now.
one, season two, I think was really where it tried us too as well.
Right. Well, the big one for me, obviously, is when everyone kind of finds out, and Josh is avoiding Rebecca,
Yeah.
and Rebecca, gets to the point where she's like threatening Josh's mom. You know what I mean? It's like,
Oh, okay, so like season four.
no, that
Three.
was
I'm sorry,
back.
three.
That was probably early season three. It
That
was
was like season three.
or
Yeah, you're right.
two. It might have been two. It was before she started getting actual therapy. It was before her real bottom out. So that was, I think that might have been
I think
late
it
two,
was.
early three.
I think it was early three.
Yeah, but
Um,
that's possible. But there were times, and the things that got me, and this is just me as a person because we're all different in how we're going to do this, is the times that Rebecca's schemes were hurting somebody else,
sure.
and she was enjoying that.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
when it got really
Where,
tough.
when,
Yeah.
when she discredited Josh as a person by making up all this stuff about him, so that anything he says about her will be discounted,
Yeah.
and his friends and his family are abandoning him, and she's standing in the corner laughing about it. I
Yeah.
was like, I can't.
He didn't deserve that.
Nobody does.
Nobody does that.
Unless it was for something he actually did, but she was accusing him of things, racism and that's like and abuse and all kinds of stuff he just didn't do, and that was like, I am not okay with this,
Yeah.
and there were a number of those things. Paula did things,
I mean, how she
Josh
treated
did
Greg,
things, right?
especially in the early seasons, that was one of the tough things for us was the whole back and forth between her being interested in Greg and then being head over heels for Josh. And I think the back and forth really did try us there for a while.
I didn't think it tries everybody.
Sure.
I love the show. I love Rebecca. The fourth season really reaffirmed that love. You know what I mean?
The
It's like
fourth season's great.
the fourth season was like, I'm really pulling for Rebecca here,
Yeah.
and she's the one character, even when she messed up, who still was really trying to get it right, which is the best anybody can do.
And she
So,
actually felt bad about it too. So
right.
there's something in her that like I think that was part of her self-loathing as well.
Sure, but she was able to correct.
She
Like when
was.
she was able to identify when she was being awful and correct,
Mhm.
which is, like I said, everybody does it. You hope people can get to that point where they can identify. It was like,
Sure.
I am not doing the right thing here.
Yeah.
I need to correct that. Um, but yeah, she tested you a lot of the way through. Uh, but again, it was like, a test for us.
And that
Can you empathize with somebody who really is struggling?
and I like that. I like it when a show or movie asks that question.
Sure.
There's plenty of films that have done it. We've talked about them, and she does fall under that complicated protagonist
Oh, absolutely.
category, uh,
Just like Don Draper,
just
right?
like Don Draper.
Exactly. Or
Well,
Walter
a
White.
lot of the
Yeah,
shows we've
exactly.
watched actually are
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so curious to see this on rewatch. How do I feel about this? Knowing what happens in the end. Obviously, it's not going to change my opinion
Sure.
on the awful things she does, but I want to see how I handle it a second time through.
Well, I mean, and we've had that experience watching shows on the channel, right?
Sure.
We will have our initial reaction of something or somebody, and people will sometimes come at us.
Like,
I'm going to be honest, sometimes unreasonably,
kind of hard, yeah.
because they've watched the whole show and know where the person ends up.
Yeah.
And it's like, we don't have that benefit. We're reacting. We're reacting to
blind.
what we're seeing. Yeah, we're going in completely blind, just as you did the first time that you all watched it. So I do kind of want to go back and watch this and kind of see, knowing what I know now, if I feel differently
If
about
the
it.
empathy comes through
Yeah,
earlier on.
or at least stronger.
Yeah.
I was never, with the exception of the times that she was really enjoying making other people suffer. I was usually with her.
Yeah, me too.
Even when she was having misguided mistakes
Mhm.
are a different thing to me than I'm going to hurt somebody and this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And I feel like that second part she did a couple times.
Oh, for sure.
And that was where I was like, no,
Not on your side,
no, I am not on your side on this. But
I think one of the characters, a lot of the characters had this. Paula had this definitely for sure. Greg, or I'm sorry, not Greg. Nathaniel.
Mhm.
Every time we saw Nathaniel, I think it was in the last season. Well, No, season 3, end of season 3, we went through the same thing with him. We're like, Nathaniel, you rock. Why are you doing this? You know?
Yeah, right. When he was cheating on his girlfriend with
Yes.
Rebecca for almost a year.
I think it was a year because
Yeah,
it was the whole of Heather's pregnancy.
right. It was, yeah. It was, well. There was
Almost. It
there,
was,
there was an
yeah.
8 month skip,
Yeah.
but they were together before that and after that.
Yeah.
It might have been close to a year. We don't
Yeah.
really know what the time was. All we know is it was happening for at least that 8 months, which is a long time. Um, and it was hard to stay with him. It was hard to stay with Josh during his selfish stuff or his denial
When he
stuff.
joined the priesthood.
Yeah, it was like, oh wait, I really am a good person. And
Mhm.
like, dude, own what you did.
And I think that's one of the big messages and themes of the show is ownership. I mean, and
It is.
they nail it. It had a lot on its mind, right?
Yeah, there was a lot about accountability.
And it was a real treat to get to experience that week after week and just sit here and see these lessons bleed through the
Right.
screen. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, when you had Nathaniel and Rebecca singing that song, or it might have just been Nathaniel singing it to her about, nothing is our fault, nothing we do is our fault because we had
Parents,
we
yeah.
had terrible parents. And while you can point to that for a reason, but obviously the point of the song is no, you still made bad choices.
Just,
You still have to own the fact that you're not great. You
Yeah.
can't just say like, well, I can do whatever I want because nothing is my fault.
Yeah, childhood trauma. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Here's my get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
Um, but at any rate, I think we should get into the songs.
Sure. Real quick before we do that,
Sure.
was there a specific episode that was your favorite?
Oh, I don't
I know
know.
it's a whole other video.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
haven't,
kind
I
of
haven't
this
even.
kind of struck me because we were talking about the show, and all these storylines are just kind of flashing before me, and I'm like, I'm gonna miss it. I love
Sure.
the continuous storylines that we had on the show, and I want to see Santino's face again. I want to see all these characters. I want to see Trent, Pookie out.
Right.
Loved it. I think a big highlight for me was the swim fan episode.
Sure.
I loved it.
I get that. I like the rom com episode.
In season 4,
Yeah, with
Maya
Nathaniel and Maya.
Yeah.
I that one I felt like was tonally perfect all the way throughout. I
Yeah.
felt they just nailed everything.
Me too.
It was brilliant. And the pilot. I thought the pilot was incredibly rock solid.
Yeah.
And those are just standing out right now. This isn't something I've actually
Real
sat down
quick,
and thought about.
is West Covina on your list at all?
No.
No.
I mean, it should be. It could be.
It's not on mine.
It was on my big list to start with, but
Me too. I ended up bumping it, but I do want to shout out that first song we got because it was I think magical is cheesy to say, but it was pretty magical and it was a great introduction.
Sure.
Like it was very captivating, great set design. I loved all of it.
yeah, it was perfect. It was a nice transition from the start to ending up in California for the run of the show.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. The songs, I started with a list of about 25 out of the 157. Ones that had stood out to me
Yeah.
throughout, and I really spent a long time trying to pare them down to 5.
I looked at the long list obviously, and I wasn't trying to make a top 10 or top 20 even. I was just trying to focus on the top 5, and even like this morning before we started, I was like, I want to bump that, maybe keep that there, bump this. So like I said, it's not definitive, but right now this is my top 5.
Yeah.
I do want to shout out the angry.
Yeah, Josh's angry outburst dance was
Or
song. Yeah, was a lot of fun.
Even Greg's cynical song where he's like, "Whip de freaking do."
Yeah, his grunge song.
I loved it. What's your top 5? What's your 5? I mean,
Well, I want to throw a couple of shout outs to ones that didn't make the list. Jim's "Don't Be a Lawyer" was 90s perfect.
Yeah.
Greg "Settle for Me" in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
I love that song. The only reason I didn't put it on my list is because it was on my list initially, but that song's been done. That idea of
Sure
has been done. Most of the songs on the show haven't. So a lack of originality, even though it was perfectly executed, is why that one didn't make the list. And I actually, it hurt to do, but I dropped "The Buzzing from the Bathroom" out of my top 5.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah,
I do too.
It's not mine, but
it was mine. It was the Les Mis song by Tim. It's funny all the way throughout. He performs it so well.
I'm sobbing outside the
bathroom. And then on another day, it'd probably be my top 5, but I just couldn't bump the other 5 to make room for any of the other 5 to make room for it. I'll start with my number 5, the one that replaced "The Buzzing from the Bathroom." "We'll Never Have Problems Again." Rachel Bloom and Vincent Rodriguez. It was when they started dating. I think it might have been 2. I'm sorry, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it was like, oh, we get our happily ever after.
Yeah.
It's perfectly done. It's tonally a lot of fun. and that concept of that I've always hated in movies
Sure.
is like, oh, they got together, they kissed, and now they will never have problems. Has
Yeah.
always bugged me. It's like that isn't how any relationship works
Yeah.
ever. So that idea of they think they got their happy ending, and we know we're still 2 seasons of the show left to go, um, really resonated with me.
Sure. My number 5 is "Settle for Me."
Settle for Me is a great song.
Now, you're right. It has been done before,
Sure.
but I did love that black and white,
Oh, it was great.
and it gets stuck in my head. And there are
It's
some
very
songs on
catchy.
the list that are. I wanted to split the difference. I wanted to have songs that are fun
Right.
and songs that are catchy, and the songs that do mean something. My list is mostly fun songs, but
Sure.
I just love that whole set piece, and I think it really highlighted Santino as a performer.
Oh no, he was great.
Yeah.
He was absolutely great in that song.
And
That's
it's an early one too. I think it's like episode 4.
yeah, it's early.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a star making song
Really?
for
Yeah.
Santino,
Yep.
obviously.
Pull my list, my phone here.
But yeah, no, again, I liked it. It's just that this idea of if you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with, kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just doesn't have the same originality factor that so many other songs have on the show,
Yeah.
despite the fact that it was fantastic.
Mhm.
All right, my number 4. I'm gonna go with the Santino song here. I gave you a UTI.
That's also my number 4.
Is it?
Yes.
Nice.
It was between that and We Tapped That.
Yeah, yeah. No, obviously a great song.
Another great highlight of the performances.
It's incredibly catchy. It's incredibly funny.
Yeah.
It's original. Rachel Bloom kind of is the reactor in the song.
Yeah.
Really nails it,
Sure.
as far as the second fiddle in the song. And of course, Santino Fantana absolutely destroys that
His
song.
delight in the fact that he gave
Don't
her.
ruin this for me.
Yeah. Look, I loved Skylar Aston.
Yeah, he did great.
I
Yeah,
can't
he
remember.
was.
Is it Austin or Aston?
I'm not sure.
I think it's Aston. But he was fantastic as Greg as well.
Tough shoes to fill, and he did a good job.
But Santino's almost chagrin, but how delighted he was in others' misery, I thought was
Right.
really, really. It was performed really well.
It was
He
great.
had this cynical nature about him that was just so entertaining.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna miss seeing him on the show.
Yeah, he kind of reminded me a lot of Jake Johnson so far on New Girl.
Kinda, yeah.
We're watching.
He had the same vibe for sure.
He didn't have that same grumpy old man energy.
Yes, he
because
did.
he's just mad at the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a nice moment of sheer delight from him.
Yeah.
Over something that he really shouldn't have been relishing. It was a
episode as a whole. That might, if we ranked the episodes, that would definitely be in the top 10, maybe
Yeah.
the top 5.
right, and the reason I like that one more than Settle for Me, despite the fact that it's on the same level performatively in the writing and everything, is because that's new. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That is an original concept
On
for a
network
song
TV.
right there. Yeah, it was great. Man, I would have loved to have seen the show if it would have gotten picked up by Showtime, which is where it was originally pitched.
Yeah.
The things they could have done with it.
We talked about that, and it's almost like I think they pushed it far enough for network.
Sure.
If they would have gotten that TVMA, how far could it have gone? I'm curious to see it. Like, I really would watch it, but at the same time, it's like,
Would we have had nudity, you think?
I mean, probably.
Just out of curiosity, I'm not like lamenting there wasn't, but
I don't know
if that's the direction they would have gone.
well, I don't know if like HBO and like Showtime require that or like have a mandate for it in certain shows. But I mean, it kind of seems like it. You watch any HBO show and you're like, well, I'm going to see a boob or two.
Well, they didn't on House of the Dragon. They changed that up from,
they did?
from Game of Thrones. Yeah, there's.
I heard there was still male nudity.
If there was, it was just behind.
Okay. Well,
They've very much toned it down for that. Is an example, right?
Maybe I'll check that out sometime.
But I mean, yeah, it depends on the show.
Sure.
I think sometimes you can, and sometimes, you don't have to.
This show can kind of swerve into the sex comedy realm.
Sure.
And I just feel like, yeah, baby.
Right. Yeah, and you're right. Maybe it was helped because there were limitations on it,
Sure.
so they couldn't be as overt,
Mm-hmm.
But it would have been a different show. You look at some of the explicit lyrics on some of the songs. And it's like this would have been a different show.
Yeah.
But obviously it still worked out great being on the CW. All right, my number 3, going back to season 2, I think.
It was hard because
because we binged it, so it's hard to keep the seasons incredibly separate. Rachel Bloom, you ruined everything, you stupid bee. I'm not gonna lie. After we watched that episode, I maybe listened to that song a dozen times.
It's catchy.
It's very catchy. It's a good showcase for Rachel Bloom as a singer.
Yes.
She absolutely destroys that song, and I think that song really kind of captured what the show was about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you want to talk about summing the show up, in one song. I feel like that one really did it, right? Like, this is her
Yeah.
self-loathing over the fact that she just is a self-destructive monster. What is it? A new girl. Uh, Jess referred to herself as a Cylon because she's so self-destructive, and I feel like that's what that song did for Rebecca Bunch, right?
Yeah.
I am in, it was a song about, as it says in the song, self-indulgent self-loathing.
Sure.
And yeah, just it really captured the vibe of the show, and musically, like so much of it, it was pitch perfect.
It's interesting that we got it so early on too,
Right.
because like you said, I
Yeah.
think it did capture the
It,
idea
it
of the
did, yeah.
show. Which I guess maybe it's a good thing they get it early on. They're like, hey, in case you guys forgot the theme of the show,
Right.
this is what it's about.
Well, I mean, it made sense because it was the first time that she'd really been outed as a monster.
Yeah.
Like, it's the first time she didn't just have everybody fooled.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the first time that Josh and Greg both kind of saw the cracks
Sure.
in what she is and what her agenda was, and
I feel like Greg caught on. Well, we definitely caught on before Josh did, but it was pretty early on-ish.
well,
He still went through the ringer with it.
yeah, he was pretty sure that you know you still kind of like Josh, but I'm here and I'll be just fine with you.
Yeah.
And I don't think he realized that her whole game was I just am going to do whatever I need to get with Josh.
Yeah.
This was the first time that he saw that happen. That like, wait a minute, all you're doing
Yeah.
is smashing your own house up so that you can be with Josh. And I think that was the first real crack for Greg too.
Me too.
And so that's the first time she had to actually look at herself like a monster, which she has to do several times throughout the show,
Yeah.
obviously. What's your three?
My three is I think I like you. Oh my god, I think I like you. And now,
This
okay,
is a lot
so
of fun.
I like that your list has these songs that do carry the themes over.
Sure.
My list, not that I don't like those songs at all. I love those songs, and I like some of the lighter ones. And this is definitely, not that the song is just light and fun, but it is sweet.
No,
Like,
it
oh my
is.
god, I think I like you. Like she's having these feelings for Greg. Wow, they're
Being
having
incredibly
this
dirty.
incredibly dirty and having this long
But yeah, the vision,
F sesh, if you want to call it that.
well, yeah, the physical comedy of the video.
I think that might be one of the hardest we ever laughed on the show, let alone the channel. Like we were crying laughing. The hand
the
grasp,
other head,
her
yeah.
looking between her legs,
While she's singing, yeah.
and it was just it was perfect.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was.
it captured the tone of the show wonderfully. I mean, the show is it can be quite serious at times, but it can be one of
Yeah,
the
it's
funniest
still a
shows on
comedy,
TV.
right? And you can tell that Rachel Bloom really had a good time doing that song
I
too.
think they
Yeah.
both did.
Yeah, for sure.
To be on set that day, I'm sure would have been a real treat.
The camera work, like
Yeah.
when she's been over in the kitchen between her
Yeah.
between her legs and singing. Yeah,
I almost put as my number three the sexy getting ready song. It's not on my list.
it's not on my list because there's just not musically much to it, but it's a great song.
We
It was
laughed,
a great
but
time. Yeah, we
laughed so
died.
hard at that,
Yeah, that's when we realized this show was going to be special.
And I
Yeah.
think that's why this song kind of one ups it
Sure.
because it does have that same, not want to say gross out humor, but it has that crude humor.
the same energy.
While saying
yeah,
something,
right. Yeah, yeah. All right, my two is I Go to the Zoo.
We can talk about it some more.
Absolutely. That is a banger. That is a banger I've listened to maybe 20 times.
Yeah.
That's a banger I listened to this morning while I was getting ready for this list.
On the way over here, I was like, I gotta listen to it.
It's so good. You made the point when we watched it that it could have been a Lonely Island hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they could have done that as an SNL short, and it would have been a hit.
Yeah.
And it should have been a hit off the show.
Yeah.
It's that good. It's that entertaining.
It's just the video alone of him just like with the shades on, making himself a drink at the beginning. Like it's so funny.
And the earnestness with which he performs such a silly song.
I know.
Like it's an R&B, like from your soul kind of hit, right? And it's so good. It's so good.
Zebras.
Right.
I love it.
The explicit version of it is amazing.
Yeah, I F on those zebras.
Yeah.
So it kind of also foreshadows where his character ends up at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of true, isn't it? Yeah.
That's why, like at the end of the episode, we were like, "Oh, of course he's working with animals. He loves the zoo."
Right, and it's the idea of him out partying, in his Rari with these hot girls and the drinking and the drugs, and all he wants to do is go to the zoo.
Yeah.
I don't know why that song resonates so well with me as a comedy banger, but my God, it's a good time.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
All right, what's your number one?
My number one And I went back and
Well,
forth on
oh,
this.
sorry, my
Oh,
number two. My number two.
sorry,
That's
sorry.
right. Yeah, because yeah, spoiler. My number two is let's have. Can I say it on YouTube? Let's have.
I don't know what you're saying.
Let
I
me
don't
see.
know if you can or not. I don't know.
Let's have. You know what? Nathaniel and Rachel.
Oh, is it the elevator song?
No, it's when it's like the Ed Sheeran parody.
When was it? It's
Season
not. It's
three.
not. It's not.
The first time Nathaniel and
Okay.
Rachel hooked
Okay.
up,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
the Ed Sheeran parody. I thought it was. You guys know it. Let's have. I don't know if we can say it on YouTube. I don't want to
Probably
flag
not.
anything.
We have children's shows that get blocked for being
So
too risque.
that's the thing with the show too. Is like
Right.
I want to be true to myself, but some of these songs you just can't say out loud.
Right.
But I love it. I think honestly, it's a beautiful ballad. It is funny. And yes, was it awful they did this the first time because she was engaged to Josh? Of course it was.
Yeah.
But I
That's the
think,
point. Right.
but I think at the same time, it was beautiful in the sense that there's like these two people that are obviously a better fit for one another, and they just wanted each other,
Sure.
And I loved the slow guitar medley of it. I loved them dancing. I loved him picking her up, and it gets stuck in my head.
Sure.
That's kind of how I want to judge some of these songs: is how often do I return to it? What's the replay value on it? And
Right.
this one's pretty high for me. It's crude,
It's
it's
good.
crass,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's a lovely song.
Yeah. I admittedly didn't have it anywhere in my top 25. That doesn't.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. It just wasn't one of the ones I was considering. My number one is "Let's Generalize About Men." The
Yes.
the
Good song.
four girls, for a number of reasons. The first off is it is a perfect 80s song. They nail it visually, they nail the musical style, they nail the hair. It's a good showcase for the four leading women on the show.
Sure.
And the message is really good,
Yep.
as far as like counterbalance, right, with the
Yep.
show. It's like we're not, they often will get off the one theme track.
Sure.
They do a good job of reminding you like the show isn't about just one thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot kind of going on, and mostly I like this song because of the musicality of it.
Yeah.
But you also can't deny that it's a nice, for the thought of like, wait a minute, are we sinking into territory of all women are victims and all men are bad?
Yeah.
Are we running the threat of that? And this song is to remind you, oh no, we're not.
Yeah.
Remember, accountability matters on the show for everybody, the men and the women.
And it was, you know what, like you said, it was a fun 80s song.
It was a great 80s song. The 80s should have had that song. That song should have been on the radio
in real life.
Yeah, Madonna should have been the lead singer on it, and it should have been on the radio. It's that good.
There's a lot of the songs in the show that should be on the radio, and like we said, my number one was "Let's Go to the Zoo."
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, my list was more fun, just because that was the big highlight of the show for me. It was like we have so much darkness in between. I guess each song's a little dark if you really want to break it down because it's happening inside of her head.
Yeah, so a lot of the songs go dark for sure.
But I loved these big set pieces of these classic songs, I guess you want to call them classics at this point. And "Let's Go to the Zoo" was a classic. I mean, they really swung for the fences with the show, and I'm really hoping that Rachel Bloom, whatever she's doing now, that she makes a show similar to this. She gets to make more music.
Yeah, she did the one on Hulu that was only on for a season, the reboot show.
Yeah, not a musical, my understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
I think she should.
I think she should
get back into music, Mrs. Bloom.
Now,
you are terrific.
It's not all just her. I know that Adam, oh my goodness, from Fountains of Wayne, who passed away.
Oh yeah,
Schlesinger.
Is it Schlesinger? It might be Schlesinger.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys. It's early.
It is early.
I'm totally blanking out on this.
But I know he was a big contributor to it as well. It wasn't all just Rachel. But man, she is fantastic. She's a great performer. Even if she doesn't write the songs, I just want to see her sing in something else.
Right. He's got it, and all the cast does, obviously.
They all do. Yeah. Vincent Rodriguez the third. He's
talented.
He shocked us so often with how he could dance, how physical he really was.
He's a hoofer for sure. He can really dance.
He's as talented as Santino. They're all as talented as one another. I feel like truly. I mean,
it's a loaded cast for sure. And when we watch the live show, it's like, oh yeah, all of these people can really bring it on stage
on Broadway.
Anyway, that's kind of our last thoughts on the show. I am going to watch the whole thing again.
Me too.
After I watch all of Schitt's Creek first, I'm definitely going to go back and binge Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, shorter binge.
Right. Yeah. Plus, I like binging shows, and we don't really get to do it here. So it's nice to get an opportunity to do it, even a show I've already seen.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely going to be a rewatcher.
Rank your top 5 for us,
Yeah,
guys.
let us know what did we miss. I know.
I'm Getting By was also
I was about to.
amazing.
That's the one I was about to say. It's like "Getting By" was like a really important song.
I also
you know,
really like the Beach Boys song where like they start in the 50s, 60s, and then they go in the 70s.
I don't know. I can't remember. There's 150 songs.
Yeah.
I don't remember all of them.
Exactly. It's a
Without
good
actually
play.
seeing and hearing them, I can't remember all the songs.
Yeah.
But at any rate, that was what our final thoughts on that. We'd like to hear yours. And remember, we have replaced this show with The Good Place,
Yeah.
which is going up right now on Patreon. And next week, the very last Crazy Ex-Girlfriend will be up on Monday.
Yeah.
Episode 17. And that Wednesday, the very first Good Place will be up.
YouTube,
So 2 days after the episode 17 goes up on YouTube, The Good Place will start premiering over on YouTube as well.
It's got big shoes to fill, but I think it's a great show.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really, really glad that the CW gave the show a chance, gave it 4 seasons, let it breathe, and let it go where it went. And it worked really well.
And once again, we said this in the finale. Thank you guys for pointing the show out to us, making us aware of it, because I feel like we're better off because of that.
Yeah, and it was. This show was 100% a recommendation from a viewer.
Yeah.
And we were like, all right, let's check it out, and never regretted it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll catch you later, guys.